Oh. Okay.
How's it going, Lynette?
Pretty well, Jen. How are you?
Good, good. I just thought I'd ask how you want to go ahead and do the oath of offices.
Let's do them individually because on Zoom it doesn't work very well to try and, I mean, do them at one time. So let's just, they don't take very long. So,
Yeah. Do you want me to just ask the people, well, John and Deanne both have a copy, so they could just read it. We'll say, raise your right hand, and then they could, that might be easier than me like saying it and then repeat after me,
Right, right.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to give the instruction to come into to town hall and sign it.
Hmm.
whenever they're available. That works for
They
me.
they both actually signed it today,
Oh, okay.
figuring that was okay.
Okay, yeah, fine with me.
Okay.
That didn't occur to me.
Yeah, just when they came in to pick up their packets, they're like, I might as well just sign it now. And I said, okay, that works.
Great.
I see we have Rich Barrows as an attendee. I'm not sure who that is. Broncos Boys and Girls Club?
Maybe
Maybe we'll,
for public comment, do we think?
yeah, possibly. I mean, I could ask him now if
Yeah.
that's appropriate, or,
Well, it'll make the meeting go smoother if you wanted to ask him.
yeah. I mean, you could you normally make an announcement right before audience business to type in the chat if they want to speak, right? Or,
Yeah, we might want to actually,
check.
yeah, I usually do.
And I can write something in the chat that if people want to speak, to please
Yes,
type into the chat.
that works.
Okay, I'll do that too.
Okay.
Hey, Jen, it's Dave. I just wanted to know if we're early or late on the agenda.
David, you're later. You're after the Washington Mill subdivision public hearing.
Okay.
So it'll be a minute. Yeah.
So maybe I'll just have you guys on in the background, maybe like 6:30 or 7.
Hard to know. We don't have final subdivision plats every day, so I really can't tell you time frame, but you are agenda item number 4.
Okay. Well, I'll be back here. So let me know if you need me.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Hmm. Oh, come on.
Do you, Hi, Mr. Barrows. I've promoted you to be able to speak. I'm just wondering if you'd like to speak during the meeting at all, or if you're just here to observe. Just thought I'd check in with you. Okay. Well, I'm gonna take him back to an attendee. I maybe he's just stepped out for a minute.
Okay. 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 Here. We go. Oh, for heaven's sakes. Mhm.
Next at 6, watch Denver South.
there, Rob. Hi, Deanne. Hi, Joan. And Mary.
By
is
the
here.
skin of my teeth.
And
Do
there's
your teeth have
Paul.
skin, really?
Thick skin.
Thick skin?
By the skin of his head.
That's thin, very thin.
I apologize, I'm not on camera. My laptop is acting up. I guess it's time to get a new one, but I am here.
Thanks, Mary.
So I'll just make faces and see if the camera kicks in all of a sudden.
You're taking the role of the Ward 3 council member in voice only.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Just I'm a ghostly attendee. How's that?
Hmm. There's Kelly.
Hello.
Hi there, Kelly.
Right.
Okay, I see it is 6 o'clock and we have a quorum, so I am going to go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Georgetown Board of Selectmen to order. It is April 13th, 2021. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm going to do roll call. Oh, we're doing the oath of office next. So, Jennifer, do you want me to just start and read mine?
Sure, yes, that'd be
Okay,
great.
all right. Town of Georgetown, oath of office, State of Colorado, County of Clear Creek, Town of Georgetown. I, Lynette Kelsey, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the State of Colorado and the Charter and ordinances of Town of Georgetown, and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the position of police judge upon which I am about to enter.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, John Jennings, do you want to go next?
Sure. Town of Georgetown, oath of office, State of Colorado, County of Clear Creek, Town of Georgetown. I, John Jennings, do solemnly and sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and the State of Colorado, and the charter and ordinances of the Town of Georgetown, and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the position of Board of Selectmen upon which I'm about to enter.
Okay, thank you. And our
Fine.
new Board of Selectmen member is Deanne Powell, and you can go ahead, Deanne.
I, Deanne Powell, do solemnly, try this in English, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that I will support and enforce the constitutions and laws of the United States of America and of the State of Colorado, and the charter and ordinances of the town of Georgetown, and shall faithfully perform to the best of my abilities the duties of the position of Board of Selectmen upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Deanne. Welcome to the
Yay.
board. Welcome back, John.
Welcome.
And now I will do roll call. I am Lynette Kelsey, police judge. Rob Connell,
Here.
Deanne Powell,
Here,
John Jennings,
Here.
Paul Hinton,
Here.
Mary Smith.
Here,
Thank you. Agenda approval. Does anybody have anything they want to add or change on the agenda? Delete?
there were a couple typos. However, I don't know where I put my papers.
I think we can probably look past the typos for purposes of the agenda.
Okey doke. Okay.
Okay. If there are no additions or revisions, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make
make-
that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. If you would like to speak during audience business, please type into the chat so that Jennifer can promote you, so you can speak to us. We'll wait a moment in case anybody's interested in speaking during this time.
And I didn't have anyone say ahead of time they wanted to speak, so
Okay.
just so you know.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Well, barring technical difficulty, it looks like nobody is interested in speaking, so we will move on. You have the payables in front of you from March 19th to April 8th, 2021. Any questions or comments on the payables?
I just had a question out of curiosity. On page 2, at the very bottom, under Parks and Recreation, it says broom. I'm sure it just needs a better explanation what that is for $338.
It's an attachment to the tractor. It's the broom
Okay, I
attachment
figured it
to the
might be
tractor.
something like that.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay,
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the payable or the payables from March 19th, 2021 to April 8th, 2021.
second,
it's been moved and seconded to approve the payables from March 19th to April 8th, 2021 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we have the minutes of the March 23rd meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It was a regular meeting. Any comments or corrections?
On page 2, down, the second paragraph from the bottom says Fire Chief Baryon submitted a letter. In the middle sentence, it says a minimum of 20 inches wide access.
good catch.
Oh,
It
that
should
should
be
be
20 feet.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Actually, in the paragraph above that, the last sentence starts off with Gerald stated. We should probably clarify that that's Gerald Dahl,
Okay. Fix
town
that.
attorney. And then, under the motion, to go into executive session, just add an E to the word mad.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you. Anything else? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
approve the
to
minute-
approve the minutes of the March 23rd meeting with the aforementioned corrections.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the March 23rd, 2021 meeting with corrections. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent. Agenda item number 1. We find ourselves with a vacancy in Ward 3 due to the purchase of a home in Ward, no, a vacancy in Ward 3 due to the purchase of Jill Marble and her husband made a purchase of a home in Ward 2 in between the time that we canceled the election and now, so she's no longer able to serve on the board to represent Ward 3. So there is a recommended motion in your packet. Kent, did you want to say anything else?
No, that Jill just submitted her regrets as far as not being able to take the oath of office and be able to serve the community. And we will have a vacancy, and just in the motion, it just states that request any applicants to become a board member to submit, a little written, submit their request in writing to the town clerk to be considered by the Board of Selectmen at a future meeting.
I do. think
Jerry
it'd
may
be-
want to say something additional too, so.
Yes, Jerry.
Yeah, that follows the, your territorial charter provides for you to declare a vacancy, and it really leaves the procedure for filling the vacancy up to the board. The important thing to remember is that this vacancy appointment will only go until the next regular election. So it'll be 2 years. That's in order to continue the staggered terms system. And lastly, what you might consider adding to the motion is some kind of deadline for submission of applications so that when the applications have closed, and you can, right now it doesn't have a deadline and should, 2 weeks, a month, whatever you want to say. It should be pretty timely though, so that you're able to review the applicants and make a decision quickly. Once you have the applications in hand, then there's another procedure to think about, which is all the way from just putting all the names in the packet, and the next meeting, there's a motion to appoint someone. Other boards that I've advised over the years, boards of trustees, have asked the persons to come in and not only with their letter, but to actually come in and have a meeting with the board and to attend a meeting, like a little interview for a job. And after the Q&A, they either make a motion to appoint that night, or the board chooses to think about it for another 2 weeks and make a motion later. So that's not something necessarily you have to decide tonight, but at a minimum, I'd advise that you put some kind of end date on when people have to send in their letter of expressing interest so that you're able to move forward with the process.
Well, what would you suggest? I mean, yes, I do want to do it in a timely manner, but I don't want to cut it too short either. Well, if we asked for it by the end of April, that falls on a Friday.
That would be a good starting point, Lynette.
That's
Okay,
good.
And it
then
can
you'll-
always be extended if needed be.
certainly.
And then you'll be able in your first meeting in May to have those names, and then you can make that decision then, rather than making it now in terms of how to go forward. You may well just choose to make an appointment in the first meeting in May, figuring you've got what you need. Or after looking at it, you may decide that you want to talk to people or you want to extend the date, but that's not something you have to do tonight. I think a good starting point, as Ken mentions, is to just require that expressions of interest be filed before the end of April.
Okay.
Are there any age restrictions? Like, I'm thinking on the young end, because the population down there is a little bit younger than our end.
I mean, you have to be 18 years or older.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me, Jerry.
That's fine. The only restrictions are in Charter 2.3, which are qualifications to, same qualifications to run for election as it is to be appointed. It's a really short charter section. It says at the time of election, or in this case, appointment, person must have resided within the limits of the ward in which the person seeks election for the year immediately preceding the election. So they have to have lived in that location for 1 year. You have to be a citizen of the United States and a registered elector. And of course, you have to be 18 to be a registered elector. So citizen, registered elector, have lived in that ward. You could live in a couple different places in the ward, but in that ward for a year.
Any other questions or comments, concerns?
But they have to be registered to vote here in Georgetown. It's not like they can own a property here and share a property somewhere else, but not be registered here.
Well, the charter says be a registered elector under the laws of the state of Colorado. That's what it says.
So that could be a part-time resident.
Yes, but they
Okay.
have to have, I mean, honestly, they have to have lived in the ward for a year. Now, the charter elsewhere says that you are the judges of the qualifications of your members. So if you come to the conclusion that someone, while they've owned a house here, is truly not a resident, and hasn't been for a year, that's kind of a subjective determination you make on a case-by-case basis based upon the specific facts. What you're giving is a hypothetical that may or may not be, once you see the facts. So I guess I'd encourage you to put the ad out there, see what comes back. And if there are concerns about any candidate, you can certainly say, can you confirm where you're living and have you lived there? And now we're considerably down the track in terms of the process here. But that's my answer. It has to be a fair residence for a year, and people go away for a while and come back, and that's usually okay. It doesn't destroy a residency. So it's kind of case by case, but the good news is that you are the ultimate judges of the qualifications of those candidates.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, would somebody like to make the motion that is in the packet?
And add to the motion, honor before April 30th, 2021 at the end.
I'll make the motion. So I move to declare a vacancy for the board member from Ward 3 in the town of Georgetown and request any applicants to become board members submit their request in writing to the town clerk to be considered by the Board of Selectmen on or before the end of April.
I'll second it.
It's Been moved and seconded to declare the vacancy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have Clear Creek Fire Chief Kelly Babian. Matters concerning Georgetown Lake rescue signs and recreation at the lake.
Good evening. I forwarded a picture of a sign that we have purchased for other locations as well as the lake. We have problem areas throughout the county. And I just wanted to have a discussion with the board so that everybody on the board and involved with the town knows the same information at the same time. Even though we train and are equipped to do rescues on the lake for ice or summertime water rescue, it may not be timely, and we may be busy with other calls at the same time and not be available. So I think that needs to be considered for you all to think about for management of the lake area, which has become amazingly overpopulated. It's crazy how much is there. It's kind of like when Gwinnett Pass got paved and turned into a metro area city park on the weekends. I know you don't have enough staff to manage it, and probably don't have enough money to hire staff to manage it, but I think it would be good to post the fact that rescue may not be available and continue discussion from there.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we currently have signage down there that's, well, for instance, right now discouraging going out on the ice since it's become unsafe?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, Randy. Start.
When we deemed the ice wasn't sufficient or reliable enough to continue ice fishing, we did come up with the number of signs we have. They were more specific, no ice fishing in this area or beyond this area. They disappeared pretty quickly. There was a lot of unhappiness with that decision, and especially after the weather turned cold again and the ice became somewhat more reliable. But so we had some, there were only a half dozen signs, and there are only so many signs we can put up. Having signs like Kelly is looking at, I obviously don't think signs are the magic answer, but they certainly can't hurt, and they will have it posted, and there might be those that take heed and say, well, maybe this is not a good idea, or maybe we need to be more aware or wear our flotation devices and not expect that somebody's going to come to get us right away. All the way up until this past weekend, we had people ignoring the signs and even ignoring the conditions and deciding they should go out on the ice. And if anybody looks at the ice regularly, there was nothing inviting or even made any sense at all that somebody should be out there, but it happened this past weekend. So the answer to your question is there are some signs, not many. I don't know if we could ever put up enough signs.
Okay.
If we had them every 10 feet, that would not be enough.
Well, and the sign that, the suggested sign that Chief Babian sent us takes care of all seasons. It's not just thin ice, it's at any time. So any comments from the board?
Yeah, I think the signs are a great idea. I think red is a great color. I think that letting people know that they're, proceeding at their own risk. Hopefully they can figure that out. But it seems like the least we should be doing is putting the signs up and letting them know we can't rescue them, maybe.
I agree with John, and especially about the color.
At horse barns, they always put up signs that you're under your own risk, so this seems totally logical.
Kelly, have you already put similar signs in other places and had people either obeying them, which is the ideal situation, or disobeying and getting themselves into trouble anyway?
We are still seeking permission from property owners that where the trailheads start. So we haven't posted any yet, so I don't have an answer for you on that.
Okay.
At a minimum, they're advised. At some point we're going to just have a free for all out there, and people are just, they're going to do whatever. So
Unfortunately, I think you're probably spot on there. There was a pretty extensive article in, I believe it was Sunday's paper, about the different volunteer rescue groups that are being stretched very, very thin because people are going into the backcountry, into terrain they have no experience with, and they're not prepared for sudden changes in the weather, or they go hiking and they get into rough terrain and they get tired and they just call for help. And unfortunately, it was already occurring before the pandemic set in, and it's only gotten worse. And they were pleading with people to use some basic common sense, which may not be as common as we hope. So.
If I can add one more thing about these signs and all of the other signs around the county and even around the state, these are more advisory than regulatory.
Mhm.
So if somebody's calling us and saying, hey, we have somebody out here, it looks like they're not being smart, they walked right past the sign. They're advised, but we don't really have authorities to go and tell them. We can make strong suggestions, but we have to remember if people will think these are regulatory, so they'll be calling the police or the fire department saying, this is happening, you guys should stop it. And our abilities are going to be limited when it comes to that.
Understood.
I'd like to recommend, though, that they be placed on the bridges at 22nd Street so that they're prominent. And I would hope that they would be posted at each of the parking areas along Argentine and at the trail openings along the lakeside, not necessarily the lagoon, because we don't really have a true designated. But, I don't want to go sign crazy. I appreciate that. But even the no ice fishing signs are pretty well buried.
Absolutely.
Where they
Are you going to be putting these up, Kelly, or are you going to ask the town to?
I purchased them and thought it would be a good effort to donate them to the town and let you post them where you think it would be good and visible, and let the town
There's a
manage
lot
that.
of process to putting them up with utility locators and everything else. So, yeah. And we've put up a lot of other signs around the lake area. You're not supposed to have campfires. There's no camping, no alcohol, other activities that are prohibited. So we'll see if these will benefit us at all. We hope people will heed them.
Are they durable signs? Are they like metal signs?
They're a thick aluminum sign.
Okay.
So they're pretty durable. They would mount well to like the visitor center or some of the 6x6 posts that are used for the different construction of things there.
Okay. I'm in favor of doing it. And like Mary said, put them strategically where people are kind of funneling down to the water.
That makes sense.
The thing with the ice, you know, it should be a minimum of 4 inches for one person to stand on. And considerably more as you get more people grouped together in vehicles and stuff like that, obviously. And just of note, when the temperature changes, the thickness of the ice changes, and more notably on the shoreline where it's warmer and not where the water's not as deep. So when it gets warm and it it will melt on both sides of the ice, so on the water side and above, and you get unreliable ice. So those measurements for safe weight bearing on the lake or on the ice is for fresh, clear ice. It's not, it doesn't guarantee that, you know, when it thaws and you get snow on top and you get temperature changes, that thickness is going to be there and it's not going to be uniform. So being aggressive with shutting it down to ice fishing when it starts to get warm and approach springtime, I think is a good move. Of course, they don't like it, but yeah, that's your choice, not theirs. And there is the channel, the river channel that goes through there, that also melts quicker. And there's, particularly around the bridge area on both sides of it, there's quite often there's open water, even when the ice is a foot or more thick in other areas.
Proper motion would be to accept the provision of the signs from the fire authority and the signs to be located at positions as determined by the town administrator and the marshal.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the warning signs from Clear Creek Fire Authority. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Since
Okay.
it was just talked about, and I know we don't really have money to do it, but should we try and create a position of lake cop? You know, something where there would be another person able, especially during the busiest times, to be down there and give them some power to enforce, like Randy Williams just said, there isn't any, but should we as the board create something like that?
Currently, we don't really have anything in this year's budget for that. Doesn't say that we couldn't create something, so it's probably something that might be considered and discussed in the future. Thank you, Deanne. Okay, next on our agenda item number 3 is the Washington Mill Major Subdivision Final Plat and Public Hearing. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 6:32 p.m. And who would like to kick this one off? Gary or Kent?
Lynette, I'll probably ask Martin Landers to
Oh.
speak since he prepared the staff report,
Okay,
although all of us were involved in the preparing the staff report, but Martin did the majority of the work, so I'll ask him to speak. So
hi there, Martin. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Although I can't say I did the majority of the work. I think Craig Abramson did the majority of the work on this. This is a 120-page staff report, as you can see, with the attachments. What I will do is provide an overview. Then I'll let Craig fill in some of the additional key details. As you know, this public hearing is really to consider approval of the Washington Mills final subdivision plat. And the final plat approval is the third and last step in the town's major subdivision review process. So we've already been through the first step, of course, which was the conceptual subdivision plan approval, which the Planning Commission is charged with approving, and they did that back in November. The second step is the preliminary plat approval, and we went through that recently with the town board, and the town board approved the preliminary plat back in January with a condition to approve it as recommended by the Planning Commission, with an additional condition to amend the materials management plan. In terms of the property itself, it is almost an acre in size. It's located in the 900 block of Main Street and Biddle Street. The property is currently vacant. It doesn't have any structures. The applicant intends to subdivide the parcel into 6 lots and construct a single-family detached home on each lot. The subdivision will create 3 lots fronting Main Street. There will be 2 lots fronting Biddle, and then we'll have 1 lot which will front both Biddle and Main Street. The comprehensive plan designates this property as town residential, which is appropriate for the proposed use. That category, town residential, incorporates the majority of the residential areas in Georgetown. And it's represented by several different zoning districts, one of which is historic residential. And this property is zoned historic residential, which is of course consistent with that land use designation. The surrounding zoning all around this property, north, south, east, and west, is also historic residential. The current land use on the property, I've already mentioned, it's vacant. It doesn't have any structures on it. The surrounding land use, both on the south, west, and east sides, are all single-family detached residential. There are 2 vacant lots, which are residential lots that are on the north side of the lot. The package itself has quite a bit of additional details provided by the applicant concerning the statement of intent, the schedule of development, the actual final plat document itself. There's a draft subdivision improvements agreement. There are detailed engineering plans, a public improvement design memo, a soil sampling analysis, and the materials management plan, which, as I mentioned, had been updated. In terms of some of the staff comments on this, really it was to follow up on some of the things that were identified from early reports from the referral agencies, primarily Colorado Geological Society survey, and CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We also received referrals from CDOT, Excel, and Clear Creek County, all of which really didn't have anything substantive to add to the discussion that we've already had. CGS, Colorado Geological Survey, they reiterated 2 concerns, one with the site being located on a debris fan, and the second related to the material management plan, having some suggestions about perhaps updating that. Our comments on this is, first of all, regarding the debris fan, the review of the geologic hazards mapping indicated that a substantial portion of existing homes currently within Georgetown are located on a debris fan. And as noted in the CGS report, the debris inundation hazard to which these homes will be exposed is similar to that of the existing homes that are constructed on the same debris fan, and the hazard does appear to be low. Regarding the materials management plan, they have some additional suggestions, as I mentioned. And we're suggesting that the applicant should consider some additional revisions to the MMP to address those concerns. The second set of comments that we received that were substantive were from CDPHE. They had previously recommended that sampling be conducted on the mine waste and on-site soils prior to any disturbance of the site. As we know, the soil testing on that was done on the eastern edge of what is known as proposed Lot 8. That indicated the presence of lead and arsenic in concentrations that exceeded acceptable levels, which spurred the need to develop the materials management plan. That has been updated by the applicants to incorporate all the comments that CDPHE had, and that is encompassing the entire site. We also had the town's engineer, contract engineer, Bob Orsatti, review the engineering plans for this development. And his comments are attached. I know that he's been working with Craig to address those, and I believe all those comments have been addressed. Mr. Orsatti has submitted an email, I think in the last couple of days, identifying a couple of additional items. We're recommending that all engineering plan comments be addressed to the satisfaction of the town administrator as a condition of the final plat approval. So again, at this point, we feel like they're fairly minor in scope, but I'm sure Craig will address those. And finally, we have the draft subdivision improvements agreement that has been reviewed by the town attorney, and he recommends that the final plat approval be conditioned upon the execution of that subdivision improvement agreement. With that, I think I'll pause here and ask if you have any questions of me before turning it over to Craig.
I'll start off. Since I'm far more familiar with what gets actually recorded for a subdivision plat at the county level, I haven't done any at the town level. So when it goes to recording, what all is going to go with that recorded, the survey of the proposed lots, what else is going to be recorded with that as attached conditions, requirements?
Sure. There's a plat document. It seems like it might be lost in 120 pages of the submittal there, but there's actually one plat document that would be signed off by the town. The town has 10 days to record that once we have the final approval of it by resolution of the board. Along with that goes the subdivision improvement agreement. And that's to cover the public improvements that are associated with the site, which include water and sewer mains, as well as some street improvements. Jerry can get into more detail on that, or the applicant, but those are the two main documents that get recorded, are the actual subdivision plat itself, and then the subdivision improvement agreement.
Okay, and considering when we approved the preliminary plat, we had discussed that the applicant was willing to do the materials management plan not only on lot 8, but also on the other 5 lots. Does that materials management plan become a part of the subdivision agreement document?
It'd be part of the conditions of approval, but it's not necessarily a part of the plat that gets recorded. And so one of our recommendations is that as a condition of approval, that materials management plan is essentially approved by the town administrator to make sure that all the final edits are made and everything is done to the town's satisfaction. But it's not actually recorded with the subdivision itself.
Is it referred to?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Actually, a plat note that is on the plat. And if you'd like, I can go ahead and read that plat note that we are suggesting be a part of it. The applicant has proposed a plat note. We're proposing that it be revised to read as follows: that the mine waste rock located on Lot 8 shall be mitigated in accordance with the materials management plan in the form approved as an element of the final plat approval by the Board of Selectmen. Compliance with the mine waste rock mitigation requirements of that management plan as approved by the town administrator, and if necessary, the chief building official, shall be a precondition to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy for any structures erected on lots 3 through 8. And lots 3 through 8, by the way, that's the entire subdivision. Finally, it says, prior to sale of any lot within the subdivision, owner shall provide the buyer with a separate copy of this plat note. So there's a couple of ways that this gets institutionalized. One is on the actual plat document itself. And then secondly, with providing the buyer with a copy of that plat note so they're aware of the materials management plan and the issues that are associated with that.
Okay. And I guess I just had a concern that when you put in language as approved by the town administrator and if necessary, the chief building official, that it doesn't become so discretionary that it could be waived.
Well, let me address that. I think, you know, they are guided by the materials management plan that the board has provided, that has approved. And so at some level, they have the discretion they have, put it that way, has a lot of guardrails around it in the form of the materials management plan that frankly has been the subject of quite a bit of negotiation and work between the parties. So I think I can give you a level of comfort there that their discretion is really not unbounded. They're really there to implement that materials management plan that you have seen and approved.
Okay. So then that becomes a condition that's actually on the recorded plat. Is that?
Yes, that plat note reads as Martin read it, and not only do we enforce that plat note as we move forward, as construction moves forward, but you'll notice that the plat note had as kind of the outside last ditch protection that no certificate of occupancy gets issued. And of course, that's huge for an owner.
Sure.
And of course, we felt it was important for the owners, buyers to receive the plat note when they bought, which is the beginning of their construction experience, so that they will know at the beginning of that construction experience that a CO won't issue unless there's been compliance, and then they're fairly advised at the beginning. But the protection for the town and frankly the owners is that no CO gets issued until that's been complied with.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Board, any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question, not specifically about the plat, but about Biddle Street. There were some comments in some of the documents as to allowing for the full width of the 23-foot roadway. Is that part of the plan that the developer will provide a wider Biddle Street than the existing one lane?
Kent, would you like to address that one?
That probably be best just let Craig present on that first, and then we can add comments after that. And maybe regarding what is meant by the full, I'd have to find that comment specifically to address it directly.
I'd recommend we hear from the applicant probably at this point. I know, I'm convinced that they will want to address that issue. It came up, Planning Commission has come up in front of the board. Staff has talked with them about that. Aspects of Biddle Street improvements are a part of the required improvements under the subdivision improvements agreement. So there's several different places that issue will get addressed. And my suggestion is we hear from the applicant, and I'm certain they'll either address it, or Mary and others can follow up with questions on what their plans are for Biddle Street.
Craig?
Good evening. How are you guys?
Wonderful, thank you.
Good. I'm here with Marv Geisnes. I think he's on there someplace in one of those little
Yes.
Hollywood squares. Thanks. My name is Craig Abrahamson. I'm a civil engineer representing the developer Marv Geisnes, who's also on the call. I'll go through some of the more technical. Actually, Marv, why don't you introduce the project in general and what your kind of goals and objectives are, and then I'll get into the more technical side of things.
Yeah, as we have stated before, and this is a little redundant, we've owned the property for quite a number of years. We have had different ideas for it. This is, I think, the best for the town. We're building 6 detached residential single-family homes. There'll be of varying sizes. We've had 2 go through the DRC with certificates of appropriateness issued at this point. We will have 3 smaller structures facing Main Street, again, appropriate for the neighborhood. And I'm just happy to be able to present something and that I think and I hope we have convinced the DRC and each of you that's appropriate for that district of Georgetown. We're hoping to attract good long-term stable families occupying the residences. I won't get into opinions about short-term rentals at this point, but we're hoping that they are long-term residents, maybe children going to our local schools. With Craig's help and Tom Peterson, architect, and all of you, we will have something that is really beneficial to Georgetown. And with that, I'll turn it back to Craig.
Thanks, Marv. Yeah, just a real quick word of thanks to everybody who's been involved in the process, from Planning Commission to Design Review, Board of Selectmen, obviously, as well as Martin and Jerry and Kent and Jen and everybody else. So thanks for everybody's input. We found recently going through the DRC process, all that input is really resulting in a much better product and project that I think we all can be proud of. I won't regurgitate any more of Martin's introduction than I need to, but I will share my screen here and just start getting into some of the more specific details, just as much as anything to refresh memories and then hopefully address and answer some specific questions that have already come up. If anybody can't see my screen, yell out real loud because I'm not looking at the chat. This is the general site and grading plan for the project. Actually, I'm going to scroll down here a little bit farther and go to the utility plan because I think it kind of shows everything in one spot. So there are the 7 lots, or 6 lots, I'm sorry, lots 3, 4, 5, 6, which fronts both, it actually fronts Main Street, but continues all the way in through to fronts Biddle Street, but goes all the way through into Main Street. Lot 7, which is accessed off of Biddle Street, and Lot 8, which is accessed off of Biddle Street. The project includes, and you see this in the subdivision improvements agreement, the extension of the sewer main. Currently, there's no sewer main in Main Street here. We'll be adding 3 manholes actually. I don't have a symbol for that one here. 3 manholes going from 10th Street up towards 9th to pick up sewerage from actually all of the lots. The sewerage from lots 7 and 8 will go down these private utility easements to access the new sewer main down here on Main Street. It'll also include a new 8-inch water main that will go from 10th Street here on the north to 9th Street on the south, creating a much desired loop from an engineering perspective between the water mains that are already on 9th Street and on 10th Street here. It'll include the provision of a new hydrant here at the corner of 9th and 10th. I'm sorry, Main and 10th, just next to existing lot 2. It'll also include the installation of a new gas main by Xcel Energy. Currently, the gas main ends right about here, depending on which Xcel Energy GIS map you look at. It'll be extended up to provide service to lots 4 and 5. And then there's an existing gas main here to about this point on Biddle Street. That's going to be extended about another 50 feet so that lots 6, 7, and 8 can all be provided gas off of Biddle Street. You won't see the gas extensions included in the subdivision improvements agreement because that goes privately through the developer and Xcel Energy. That's all well underway and in design with Xcel. Up here, and I'm going to try and zoom in just a little bit on Biddle Street. So in consultation with town staff, including Mr. Orsatti, the town's contract civil engineer, we're basically, right now, Biddle Street kind of hugs this existing lot line or on the east side of the existing parcel. We're going to take some of that curve out by building a rockery wall right along this line here, pushing the east edge of existing Biddle Street about 4.5 feet to the east, and pulling that traveled pathway about 4.5 feet away from that east property boundary of lots 6, 7, and 8. Trying to see, one of these sheets, I've got an example of that rockery wall. It's designed based on, and I may not have it in this version, actually, I think it's in the version you guys have, but not the one I've got pulled up here. But it's actually designed based on engineering principles they used on Guanella Pass, which we know have passed DRC muster as well as engineering muster. Oh, actually, here it is right here. So you can kind of see it's basically it essentially ends up being a 3-course rock wall. And again, Mr. Orsatti has reviewed all the engineering details on that. Let's see, let me look at my notes here real quick. With regard to Mr. Orsatti, sounds like there might be a little confusion. We have responded to all of the written comments that we have received from Mr. Orsatti. He has reviewed the revised documents related to those written comments. He and I had a phone conversation yesterday in which he expressed verbally that the resubmitted plans, which are the ones that you have in front of you, meet his expectations. So if there's additional comments, those are comments that we have not been made aware of. Couple of comments with regard to the referral agency responses, as well as some of the notes in the staff report. We have worked quite well with both towns' contract staff, as well as the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They've been very responsive as it relates to development of the materials management plan. And as Martin indicated, and we understand it, and is indicated by their email correspondence, which I believe is in your packet, that we've met all of their conditions in terms of their recommendations. With regard to CGS, who we unfortunately haven't had near as much luck actually corresponding or conversing with, Martin addressed the debris fan thing, and I think we adequately addressed that during the preliminary plat discussion as well. But I just want to talk specifically about Ms. Carlson's comments related to the quote engineering properties of the waste rock pile. While we certainly appreciate and understand her concerns as a geologist, from a practical perspective, and I apologize for the barking dog in the background. Hopefully somebody will tend to that for me. The waste rock pile will not be used to support structures. Just by the very nature of the design of these residences being on a hillside, that material gets excavated and the foundations get borne on native soil. So I kind of created this little exhibit here. It's exaggerated in the vertical direction just for clarity, but this line here represents the existing topography. This is the waste rock pile. Comes down and ties back into the native and natural grade. You can see here, we kind of draw this presumed, legitimately, I would say, presumed extension of this natural grade line here. And then this is essentially the walkout basement level of the structure that'll go on lot 8. As you can see, the actual floor level for this structure lies down here, and then the foundation, just for no other reason than frost protection, actually bears in native material. So the concern with regard to the engineering properties, we think, are addressed primarily through the design of the individual property, specifically, as well as the International Residential Code, which has specific provisions with regard to soils and soil characteristics and allowable design criteria based on soil type and native soil type. So in terms of the comment with regard to perhaps modifying the materials management plan to address the engineering properties concern expressed by CGS, first of all, I would say the materials management plan is probably not the proper place to do that if we were to address it. And secondarily, I would say that it's proper, and Lynette knows this from her work professionally in Clear Creek County, the native soils are very predictable. And from a residential construction perspective, the International Residential Code provides very conservative allowable soil bearing pressures in terms of foundation design. So we think that the issues that are of concern to CGS in their letter really are addressed just through the natural course of individual structure design. Finally, I just want to make a comment with regard to the suggested language in for the plat note. And I'll pick up halfway through, as approved by the town administrator and, if necessary, the chief building official. Quite frankly, I'm not sure the chief building official is going to understand or have the professional expertise to determine whether the materials management plan has been appropriately implemented. Our suggestion would be to replace that with qualified environmental consultant, so that it's not left to Kent or the building official to make that determination whether the MMP has been properly implemented. Rather, somebody who specifically practices in the environmental consulting industry might be a better and more reliable determinant as to whether or not the MMP was properly implemented. I think I've addressed everything I wanted to address, and hopefully Mary's question. And with that, I will open it up for questions, or as whatever the police judge determines is the appropriate next step.
Okay, thank you very much. Mary, did that satisfy your question?
Kind of, sort of. So is Biddle Street remaining a single lane road,
Yes,
but with improvements?
correct.
And so my concern is if there was a need down the line to widen Biddle, then the debris fan could potentially be disrupted or impacted and not necessarily be mitigated under these same provisions that, and I'm going to say you as the developer, and I know you're just a part of that picture, I don't want to see the town on the hook for mitigation because the debris fan has been impacted and puts the residents in that area under a greater health or safety issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want me to respond or.
Yes, please.
Well, I see them, there are three issues that you bring up. One is the general notion of the width of the road as compared to the width of the right of way. The second being the materials management plan, I believe, if you're talking about CGS's comment, and the third being the debris fan, if you're talking about CGS's specific comments, and lastly, the materials management plan in terms of health or safety. Quite my professional opinion is, and I had a conversation with Mr. Orsatti about this as well, and I'll point this out on the site plan. There was no discussion specifically or determination in the conversation with Mr. Orsatti that this road needed to be widened beyond its existing width to accommodate the traffic that these three additional residences will create. We did add this turnaround right here in the right of way to provide specifically for the ability for larger vehicles to maneuver and exit back out Biddle Street. In terms of impact on the debris fan from any future construction that might take place on Biddle Street, I can't really speak to that. In terms of impacting the potentially contaminated soils that might go along with any future development there, again, that's all going to be based on a determination made at a later date with regard to future development. Insofar as, again, from an engineering perspective, collectively, Mr. Orsatti and I, generally agreed that there was no need to increase the width of Biddle Street as traveled.
Greg, you might point out the debris fan that we're talking about right now was deposited probably many millions of years ago. It's not the waste material that's on lot 8.
Correct. Yeah, those are two separate items. Thank you.
So just my last, and you can clarify this for me or just confirm. So in the letter that I have in front of me from Mr. Orsatti, April 2nd, his point number 6, if Biddle Street is to return to a 12-foot wide single lane road condition, it is recommended that 6-inch minimum thickness of CDOT Class 6 aggregate be placed and compacted to 98% as a developed road section. So that's his recommendation. Is that what you're planning on doing?
Yeah, there are notes in this set of documents, and I would have to track them down, specifically indicating that any disturbed areas, and Mr. Orsatti and our conversation went beyond just improvements to Biddle Street, but also the obvious disruption that will take place as we install the new infrastructure in Main Street, that all of those areas will be, regraded with a final surface of 6 inches of compacted Class 6 road base. So that's, yes, that provision is addressed in these documents.
Thanks.
Hey, can I ask you a question, Craig?
Yes, sir.
Bob doesn't live here, and that what that Biddle Street looks like, and I happen to have the curtain drawn to the side, and I'm looking right at it. You don't think 12 more cars isn't going to create more traffic? Come on, dude.
No, I said the level of traffic that would require increasing the width of that road to beyond 12 feet.
Don't you think that would be a good forethought thing to do? If possible.
What I'll tell you at this point is that we believe that we've addressed all the comments that have been made up to this point through the public hearing process, including the Board of Selectmen preliminary plat hearing, and consulted with the town's consultants, and responded in a way that they agree is appropriate. So
Nothing we can do.
whether you're asking me if we need to widen Biddle Street out to 25 feet, that answer is a resounding no. I'll point out that in the Bighorn Crossing subdivision, there are a number of 14-foot roads in that project.
Right.
So anyway,
Just saying that here's an opportunity to improve the infrastructure there. Just didn't want to fall short. That's all.
Right. And I appreciate your concerns, Rob, but my recollection of the discussion that we had during the preliminary plat was that any efforts to widen it more than is shown on this plat would result in needing a retaining wall on that east side that is significantly higher than what you see in the drawings here.
No,
And
I'm looking right at it.
it was a kind of an engineering trade-off. And because of its, it really does have an environmental impact, and it was decided that the width of the proposed width of the road was sufficient for the traffic that would be anticipated. And that also keeps that engineering expense of the retaining wall on that east side down, rather than having a great big tall wall that then represents more cost, more maintenance, etc.
I remember.
Okay. Just it was a while ago, so.
No, it's just one of those things where, gosh, we got an opportunity here. I just didn't want to squander it.
Sure.
The other limitation, Rob, that comes up is with your house and the house adjacent to you, or the house that you're in, as far as their access to your lots. The access for the lot adjacent to you actually comes on to the town's right of way at that location. So any improvements on that east side of Biddle have to take that into consideration. So as I've been reminded of by a couple residents here recently. So
right on.
Okay. At this time, if there's anyone in the public that would like to make a comment, please go ahead and type into the chat so that Jennifer can promote you so that you can make public comment. It is a public hearing. And meanwhile, we'll continue with board questions if anyone has them.
I do.
Yes, Deanne.
Okay, I've got two. First, I want to make a comment that I agree with Rob's comment that now is the time to deal with maximizing what we can do there because it's better than retrofitting. But what I wanted to ask, this diagram that we just saw, it appears that it gets narrower at the stop sign on the South 9th Street end than the rest of the proposed street. Is that valid, or am I not looking at this right?
sorry about that. I'll respond to that if that's okay, Lynette. That's an approximation of the as traveled width of existing Biddle Street in that vicinity. The dark line here, that's an approximation. It's I wouldn't say narrower necessarily. I mean, if you walk out there, but it's about the same width. It's about 12 feet at the neck right here.
Is there a way to make it slightly wider just for ease of turning things like snowplows and the like?
As a matter of simple maintenance and grading, it's very doable to make it match this area up here.
Yeah, that's where it looked. I was counting that middle area as normal, and it just looks like it narrows down by the stop sign.
Yeah, and again, this is an approximation. But yes, that's, again, that could be addressed as a simple matter of maintenance, quite frankly, as opposed to any kind of construction associated with a subdivision per se, would be my opinion, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, Deanne?
No, I just don't feel comfortable with that. It seems like it should widen out towards the mouth of the egress or entrance or whatever. That what happens if we end up at 7 o'clock in the morning and everybody's trying to go to work at the same time? So we've got 2 or 3 cars lined up wanting to turn north or west and get back out onto Main Street and the like, go where they're going. And if somebody else either wants to come straight ahead from the other part of Biddle, or if nobody will be coming from the east, but you know, it needs to be wider there. Probably needs to be wider the whole way, because again, like Rob was saying, now's the time to do this.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Deanne, but we did actually discuss it during the preliminary plat, and it came to an agreement that this was going to be sufficiently wide to serve these new lots and the anticipated traffic. And it does put the applicant into a difficult situation where we approved it at preliminary plat and then are requiring something different than was approved at the final plat. Not that it can't happen that way, but it does kind of put it puts additional burden on the applicant that was not mentioned or required during the preliminary plat. Also that, so it's my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, that you're addressing the section of Biddle Street that is adjacent to the proposed new lots, and you were not addressing the existing section that's adjacent to actually 2 previously developed lots. Is that correct?
That is correct, Lynette. And the comment, this whole notion was generated actually by Martin, just in the notion that again, the existing traveled way was right along the east edge of the property in question. And so this was the solution to that problem, which was, can we move that traveled way away from the very edge? It wasn't ever a conversation about traffic volume, road surface, anything like that. Again, it was all initiated as a result of just trying to address that particular alignment issue. So yeah.
Okay.
Lynette,
Yes.
2 points I should probably make about, what can be required in the subdivision improvement context and what can't. And of course, the rule is that development pays its own way and provides for the infrastructure necessary to support the development. Here you have a platted street, and so the improvements that are presently being recommended be required are required to support that development. So development paying its own way. I do understand and appreciate a couple of board members' comments about, well, what about future development, and should we not be planning for that? And 2 things there. You have planned for that in the sense that you have a platted right-of-way that you own, and that's now land available to you. The Second part of that, though, is that if future development needs more right-of-way because there's more traffic volume coming from traffic further to the north, that's not the obligation of this development. That would be the obligation of that future development to widen Biddle Street. So under the theory that development pays its own way, you improve the right-of-way such as to take care of the traffic that this development is going to generate. Future developments are going to need more width. They're going to have to pay for it. You've got the land available for them, but you can't require this development to widen the street to make it ready for houses in the future off-site. I distinguish that, though, from the issue that Deanne raises about the intersection at because, of course, this is traffic that will be coming from this development out into the road system. It's not uncommon. Now, we're not going to have a street light there, but, you know, it's not uncommon, for example, for a traffic study to say, you know, now that you're adding these many more cars, you've got to add a light at the intersection that's offsite, but it's dealing with the traffic you're creating, which is something like the issue that Ms. Powell's raising. And I guess I kind of defer to Kent around the issue of the sort of turning radius at that location for maintenance vehicles, et cetera, and whether that's something that the town just addresses as a result of its plowing activities or not. But I think he's probably the right guy to weigh in on that.
Yeah, and I think it can be worked in coordination and collaboration with the developer as far as what's being done further up on the hill. But there is some topography right at the intersection, and it probably should have been addressed at some point. You know, it's just one lane comes out of Biddle right there. Just need to take a look at right at the intersection there, and just in coordination with what will be done with the 4 foot wide further up, we just improve that intersection so it's a little wider, so it's not as much what it looks like. But it really is about the same width as Craig was talking about. What he penciled in may have given the appearance that it's not, but and Rob, since he has to drive it every single day, can probably tell me differently, but I think it's about the same, isn't it, Rob? As you get to the stop sign, or no?
It is. There are points where it is a little bit wider than others. It is still, anyway, you slice it a single lane road.
Right.
And I would think
but
that
right at the intersection there to
at the
make it a little bit
9th
better.
or 10th.
Right.
At 9th.
Yeah, it's a 1 lane road, but it's kind of a 1 lane road from 9th to where it merges with Main.
Yeah, further on. It's
Right.
basically a lane and a half, or Biddle's a lane and a half from where it
Kinda.
starts.
You know,
Yeah.
I've had to have people, you know, pull over and let me go by.
Right.
That's sort of what we're trying to head off, is to deal with it now, because in that older section of Biddle, there's not really any way to widen it, because with the cars parking on the street, there literally is only 1 lane, and in a lot of places, like by the park, it drops off down into the park. So there isn't much can be done on that, what is that, couple block long section. But in this new one, before it gets built up, before it gets all kinds of improvements done, now is the time to think about widening it, even if it's only partially, you know, a half a lane or something, just to make it easier now than later.
You know, I think that in order for that to happen, then the development would have to make some concessions and, you know, and give a little bit on their side. And, you know, that's something that they've already planned out. And, you know, again, Jerry made a great point about we've already planned for the future, and it really does not fall on the developer, you know, it doesn't fall on this developer to prepare for what's going down the road, as much as it would make sense and it would be great, but really it's not his responsibility.
So can we task, this is a question for Kent, can we just task you and the Road and Bridge staff to put that on their list of to-dos to improve that intersection as much as is feasibly possible?
Right, right. I do think that,
Okay.
yes. And that's what I was saying, in coordination with the developer. And when that happens, to widen
Okay.
Biddle to also address the intersection. So,
Is now the time to ask a couple more questions that aren't related to the road plotting?
Certainly.
Okay, first one is, where's water for all of this coming from? Because there've been a couple summers since I've been here that we were so dry that we were asked not to water lawns and the like. So where is the water for all 6 new houses coming from? That's part A. And part B is there a way to mandate that the long-term be the only way these houses can be used, rather than any of them being picked up in 10 years to be the RBOs or something?
Jerry can probably answer the second one. And
Take the second one first, and then I'm happy to opine on the first. This is a subdivision of property that is zoned appropriately for that use. And it's not appropriate in a subdivision approval to then essentially lay covenants on the property in terms of its long-term use. They have a right to this zoning, and all they're doing here is dividing that property up for sale. But the zoning allows the use that they intend to make of it, and to add constraints in the form of use covenants is not available to the town. In terms of water supply, all residential properties in town, as long as they pay their tap fees, have the absolute right to connect to the water system. And so if the tap fee is paid, then they get to connect to the water system and use water on the same basis as all other residences. And understanding that in the past, I've done municipal work for a very long time, and over the years, there have been times when cities have had to impose watering restrictions on classes of users. And those classes are always, commercial, agricultural, industrial, residential. And whatever residences are built here would have to comply with whatever residential class watering restrictions or water use restrictions the town were to impose. But those would be town-wide across all residences and would not call these residences out separately.
What I'm asking is, where is the water coming from? Not how is it apportioned out?
Physically?
Our bucket is only so big, and there are years when the bucket only fills half full. So where is this new water for a bunch of new houses coming from?
we have sufficient water rights to provide for these 6 additional houses, just like we have sufficient water rights for vacant lots that are already available in town. We do put on restrictions just because water is not unlimited. We can't afford to have everybody water their yard for 10 hours a day. So there has to be some limit put on, but we do have sufficient water rights. And we have more water rights. We're not coming up. There are standards that set as far as what percentage of our water rights do we actually use. And we have not come against the percentage that requires us to raise red flags about it as far as the usage. So we're not at that point yet. And these 6 lots will not provide an additional strain on our resources that's beyond what we can handle at this point.
Thank you.
So,
Okay. Any other questions that you had, Deanne?
I just wish I'd had more time to study all the Washington Mill stuff.
It's a lot to absorb. That's very true. we haven't had anybody type into the chat that they'd like to make a comment. Any other board members that had questions or comments? Yes, John.
I'd like to say that I think that the staff has done a great job, looking through all the different points, and I'm pretty comfortable with their recommendations and whatnot with this project, and I think it'll be a good addition to our town.
Thank you. I'd like to also say I think this is a good proposal. I think it's well thought out. I think it was very well prepared. A lot of work went into it, and thank you everybody who put so many hours and brain cells up against this, and you did a good job. I'm looking forward to seeing the houses go up. Anyone else?
Lynette, did you see Michael Stavy's hand raised?
I did not. Okay.
Can I speak?
Yes, I see you now. Okay, thank you.
I think gentrification of Georgetown is pretty nice. I live right along the project or next to the project. The first two properties have been promised there'll only be one house in. Is there any way to enforce that promise? They're not part of this subdivision, but they're owned by the same people. Lots 1 and 2.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Kent or Martin?
Margie said she was going to only put up one. I think that's very commendable.
That's always up to the property owner. It's not part of this current application.
So nothing can be done about this as a covenant or anything like that.
No, that's really not under consideration at this time.
That's just Marvin's gentleman agreement.
Right.
Well,
okay.
This property that's under consideration doesn't include that.
I understand, but
and because it doesn't include that, you can't make a condition of this approval a restriction on other property that's adjacent and owned by even by the same owner.
Okay. Thank you for the legal opinion.
Okay.
Aside from that, I think it's a nice project.
Thank you. Any other comments? I believe there are some thought there were some possible motions in your packet. Yes, on page 6.
You might want to close the
close
the public hearing first, Lynette.
Okay, so one last call. If there are any other comments from the public, please let us know now by either raising your hand or typing into the chat. I'll give it a moment. And it looks like we don't have anyone. I don't see any. So we'll close at the public hearing at 7:31.
There are 4 different alternative motions rather than disappointingly 3 in the staff report, but the one you're probably mostly going to be interested in is number 2, because it does have the conditions that staff's recommending that I heard no objection from the applicant on, other than 2A, which is the plat note and sort of who would be writing herd on the implementation of the materials management plan. There was some dialogue on that, and I want to honor comments the applicant made about having concern about that, so at least the board can know that that was said and decide what to do about that language.
If I could make a comment, in my line of work, we quite often have third-party, special inspection requirements, and so it would not be, the language that's suggested here would not preclude either the town administrator or the chief building official from requiring that evaluation and report on the materials management plan to be done by a third party expert, somebody who is familiar with those kinds of mitigation measures. And so I don't know if you really need to specify it, but what do you think, Kent?
I'm fine with either way. If it's mentioned as the specific title that Craig mentioned, or whether it's by third party, appropriate third party appointed by the town administrator or approved by the town administrator, either way. Or even if it's
right, you know, when the town administrator is tasked with something, town administrator always has the ability to hire someone and employ someone to help him achieve that task.
Right.
So it doesn't really need to be mentioned in that condition. It can be dealt with at the time that the development's happening. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, that's right. And in fairness, again, to the point Craig made, if the board really doesn't trust Kent to do it, to be kind of cruelly blunt here, and really wants that work to be farmed out,
which is fine,
it should say so, because if it doesn't, then it's left up to Kent to decide if he's going to farm it out or do it himself. And just laying it out on the table for you. So sure. That's how that would work.
My guess is that this professional that Craig was referring to is going to facilitate the inspection aspects of this and hopefully prevent any delays with the inspection and continuance of the project. Is that not a good take on this, Craig? Rather than to go through another type of inspection and the person isn't quite familiar with the mitigation that's had to be done, and so therefore there's a delay that you're dealing with, as opposed to the person you're suggesting?
Well, the hearing is closed, so maybe we ought to have Kent
answer
that question. Can you answer that, Kent?
Yeah, I would agree with what Mary is saying. It's trying to get it to so that it goes smoother and that there's the appropriate person providing the information. So
how would you like the wording,
Jerry?
Well, my belief is that if the board is comfortable with the sort of assurances, I guess, that Kent has given, that in terms of how he would view his role and the authority given him by the plat note, then the motion is written as fine. If you want to specifically direct that he use or coordinate with other professionals to make sure he does, then you would change the plat note, or you can approve it, you know, so you've got those two choices. It really comes back to what I said earlier. If you trust him that he'll employ people when he needs them, then the plat note as written is fine. Trust is probably the wrong word, but if for whatever reason you want to insist that he employ others, then we should tinker with the plat note a bit.
So I personally am comfortable leaving the plat note as it is, because I think both the town administrator and the chief building official are, they know their own limitations and would, in normal circumstances, defer to a third party professional to evaluate that. Just normal practice.
I agree with that.
So do I.
Paul's giving us a thumbs up. So are you comfortable with that, Mary?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And how about you, Deanne?
I still feel like such a noob. I'm not comfortable, but go ahead and do what you need to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, who would like to make the motion? Yes, John.
I'll make the motion. The motion to approve the Washington Mills final subdivision plat with the following conditions. A, that the following plat note be revised as follows. Mine waste rock located on lot 8 shall be mitigated in accordance with the materials management plan in the form of approved as an element of the final plat approved by the Board of Selectmen. Compliance with the mine waste rock mitigation requirements of the management plan and is approved by the town administrator and, if necessary, the chief building official. Shall be a precondition to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy for any structures erected on lots 3 through 8. Prior to the sale of any lots within the subdivision, the buyer must provide with a separate copy of this plat note. B, all engineering plan comments be addressed to the satisfaction of the town administrator prior to the recordation of the final plat. C, execution of the subdivision improvement agreement, SIA in parentheses, includes exhibits in the form approved by the town attorney and the town administrator.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Washington Mills final subdivision plat with the conditions as listed. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? One opposed.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is Jen. Was that Paul that seconded? Was that
No, it
Rob?
was, I think Mary said second first,
Okay, Mary. Okay, thank you.
I believe.
I could arm wrestle Paul for it.
I want to see that.
Okay.
How do we Zoom arm wrestle?
It gets tricky. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Marv, and thank you, Craig, for proposing this. And thanks, Martin, for all your hard work, and very good.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
All right.
And Jerry, would you go over what's the final step regarding this? Or does Martin?
I can do that if you like, Ken. Yeah, basically, there's one additional step here that's involved per the code 1712-090 regarding subdivision. And basically, it says at the conclusion of the hearing, the board shall vote to approve with conditions, et cetera.
Mhm.
Thereafter, direct staff to prepare a written resolution with supporting findings in the board's decision for the board's review and approval at its next regularly scheduled meeting. You'll recall we did something very similar for the Bighorn development. So basically 2 weeks from now, you'll see on your agenda a resolution that essentially comes up with the findings that solidifies the final resolution for this. Once that occurs, then the plat can be signed and recorded. Once the plat is signed by the town officials, the town staff has 10 days to record the plat.
Okay, thank you. Do you need a motion to direct you to do that, or is this just implied by the approval?
I believe it's implied, but I'll let Jerry make that call.
Yeah, implied by the approval. I don't always require that there be a resolution making findings, but it's for the town, it's sort of a major land use approval. I'd recommend that. That way we can memorialize the action that was taken. It'll be much shorter, put it that way, than the package of materials that you had tonight.
Sure.
And really just kind of memorializes all the discussion.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we ready to move on to the next agenda item, I think, which is agenda item number 4. It is an encroachment license, and the applicant is David Burton and Andre Covillion. The right-of-way west of Argentine Street, abutting Lot 1, Block 3, near the intersection of 20th Street and Argentine Street. And welcome, David, and I saw Andre in there as well. So, actually, Jerry, do you want to start off refreshing us on, particularly because we've done an encroachment agreement just last meeting, but Deanne wasn't on the board. So do you want to start us off with encroachment agreement?
Sure, and Kent can help me out a little bit. This is the encroachment agreement. I'm working on a very bad cell phone version of the agenda for whatever reason here tonight. Sorry. This is the encroachment agreement out on Argentine, right, across from Big Horn.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
The town code provides, just for all of your information, the ability for the board to permit private users to encroach upon town property. And we see that they're sprinkled around the town. There's been encroachment agreements for fences, for example, that are actually in the right of way. We had, I think, one of those not recently, where you're permitting people, private individuals that are adjacent usually, to use actually town property that would otherwise they'd not be able to use. No one can use property that you don't own unless you get permission from the property owner. And encroachment agreements are one way. There are others. There are easements we'll talk about shortly. But encroachment agreements are recognized in the code for the use of property by adjacent property owners for a variety of purposes. They're required to have been reviewed by planning commission, right? Kent, I believe that's right.
Yes, sir.
For a recommendation. And those have come up recently. I think the last meeting, we actually had an encroachment agreement for the apartments that would be encroaching on the formerly vacated Rose Street right of way for the use of parking, as you recall. And it's good for them, and it's a proper use of the town's land. Encroachment agreements are always irrevocable because the government's around forever and owns that property, and things may change in the future, and their need for the encroachment may change, and encroachments are usually more of a temporary need or an access need or something like that. So there has been an application here for an encroachment agreement to allow for parking and driveway access to that rather long, narrow strip of private property that is between Argentine and I-70 across from Bighorn. That is frankly a development. I'll let the applicant describe it, but it's a development challenge if you're trying to build something there for a lot of reasons, and the ability to encroach a little bit into the Argentine right-of-way, which is rather wide at that location, is what's desired. Actually, that right-of-way is the old US Highway 40, I believe.
US 6.
US 6, sorry.
US 6.
Yeah, through there. And so it's an old US highway, and so it's actually a little wider right-of-way that the town owns than usual, and that's the request. But there's a code basis that allows you to let adjacent property owners use and occupy town property for certain purposes. And this is one of those kinds of applications. I'm glad we had the Rose Street apartment buildings parking encroachment agreement just last meeting. So that kind of tells you what the mechanism is in the process for that. We've got a somewhat different thing later on the agenda, but for tonight, here on Argentine, that's the the request, or that's the mechanism. Obviously, you need to be convinced by the applicant that it's a reasonable use. As contrasted from subdivision review, this is something, to be blunt, you can say no to for any reason you wish. Subdivision review, your role is more constrained. You've got rules for subdivision. If people comply with the rules in terms of how they lay out the subdivision, etc., then it's like a building permit. If I comply with all the rules, I should get my permit. Encroachment licenses are not that way. They are completely at your discretion. Even if it's a great project, you can still say no. And so that's important for the board to hear that. You have a lot more latitude. And you can impose conditions on those encroachment agreements as well in any way that seems to make sense in the circumstance. Sorry for taking so long, but that's the encroachment agreement short course.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
Yeah.
Next, I think it would be appropriate to hear from the applicants. Who would like to start?
I can start. So my name is David Burton. I am an architect and a general contractor and a developer. I've been building and developing in the Front Range of Colorado for 26 years. My company is Real Architecture. We have a staff of about 20 people. We design and build and own real estate. That's our general modus operandi. I have this lot under contract with the seller is the developer of Bighorn Crossing. And this is a commercially zoned lot. It's zoned Gateway Commercial. As Jerry mentioned, it's a really difficult lot. It's very, very narrow on the east end. And it is, I think it's 25 feet wide on the east end, and it's about 325 feet long. So it's a really long, skinny lot. We have applied for a encroachment license agreement with the city, and our idea is to be able to use that encroached area for parking and a drive aisle to access and use for this property. Now, we have visited with the DRC, and we've visited with the Planning Commission, and we've learned a couple things at each and every visit. Our first meeting, we did not know that there was a 10-foot wide peak to plains trail that is intended to be in this area. So we have added that to our design, and we buffered that trail from the existing Argentine edge of asphalt. We have heard from the fire department that they did not want any curb and gutter along Argentine, so we did remove that. And most recently, we did receive a survey that shows the location of Argentine Street, the actual asphalt roadway within the 100-foot US 6 original right-of-way. And it's actually farther away from our property than we originally anticipated. We anticipated that the Argentine asphalt right-of-way would have been in the center, street would have been in the center of the right-of-way. It's actually offset away from our property a little bit. And so with that, that enlarged distance, I have reworked the plan that makes this a better parking lot for everyone. I made it, the original one showed it a one-way drive aisle. The new plan in front of you shows a 24-foot wide two-way drive aisle and 90-degree parking. So within this area, we propose, again, to put parking spaces. We have 20 parking spaces that would be in the encroached area along with the drive aisle. We're also showing some bike parking, since the 10-foot wide peak to plains trail is primarily a bicycle trail. We figured that bike parking would be a good thing to have in front of our retail development. We have been working with a couple local manufacturers, one of them being Never Summer Snowboards, and I don't know if they're anywhere on the Zoom tonight, but they have shown quite a bit of interest in opening the first Never Summer Snowboard retail store here, and that might be a rental area as well, or a demo for their products. They're actually the largest snowboard manufacturer in the US. They're from Fort Collins. They live in the Front Range, and they have shown quite a bit of interest in opening, like I said, the first retail store that they've ever had here. So right now, again, we're asking for the encroachment of this parking lot that we're showing and drive aisle in the public right of way. We would construct this, we would maintain this, and we understand that it is a revocable license. So with that, we
Question.
go ahead.
In terms of, so this will be basically a parking lot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys ever tossed around the idea of having electric car refueling stations?
No, we haven't, but that's a great idea, and I would definitely think that we should do that. We should do that.
I mean, I just
Definitely.
recently heard how Salida, it's the cost of actually installing one of these things has paid for itself like 10 and 20 times over. And it's brought a lot of commerce to the area. I just wondered if maybe that was just a point to explore, just seeing that it seems like it's going that way.
Rob, excellent idea. I'll definitely include that for sure.
Is it possible to screen share a diagram of this? I think it might be helpful for the.
Yeah, I can do that. And it looks like Andre has his hand up. I'll screen share the drawings.
Hi, this is Andre Kuvian. I'm one of Dave's partners on the project and kind of his right-hand man. I just wanted to say quickly thanks to both Kent and Jen. They've been really helpful on this project. We're kind of just at the beginning, but it's already been a little tricky. So I'm really thankful for their help. And yeah, I think Dave kind of started to talk about it, but we're looking to bring Colorado businesses to this location. And I think we're pretty interested in being part of the community. So I just wanted to say those things as well.
Thank you. Okay, and just to clarify, I know it takes a while for newcomers to town to get oriented, because in this section of I-70 doesn't run east and west, it runs north and south. So the narrow end of your property is actually at the north of the property, not the east. So just to clarify, so that people who do know the direction that the Georgetown Valley runs aren't confused. So
Okay, I should have said eastbound. That's what I meant.
it confuses a lot of people. So, all right. Did you want to point anything out here, or?
One thing I do want to clarify was the original application that we submitted the 1st of March, the draft application for the encroachment agreement, mentioned the right of way between said lot 1, block 3 and Argentine Street, approximately 325 by 38 feet. I believe it's going to be more like 54 feet now that we have an updated survey. So I did mention that the asphalt was not centered in the right of way, but essentially from the edge of asphalt to the face of property line is what we're looking to encroach.
Well, but, okay. I guess just I need a point of clarification. So the Peak to Plains Trail will not belong. Should that be included in this encroachment agreement or not?
We would build it if you wanted us to, so.
Okay, because I wasn't, the dimensions did catch my eye in the draft encroachment license agreement, because they didn't seem to agree with what's on the site plan. But should
Yeah, I think the maintenance of the trail should be the town's, obviously, because that's the trail itself, that 10-foot wide
Okay,
trail. And Jerry can correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but
I agree. I agree. Once built, it becomes an improvement that's on town property and is maintained by the town. Despite the fact that there's an encroachment, it's still town property, and it would be a town improvement once it was built.
okay. And then, that kind of puts that 5-foot landscape buffer strip into a category all its own, because I'm presuming that it being part of the, should we be then exempting the 10-foot wide peak to plains section of bike trail out of the encroachment agreement?
I think that would be the easiest way to do it. Yes.
So, okay,
Obviously, we'd still need the encroachment across that.
sure, for your entrances.
Yeah,
So just, reword
Yeah.
that description so that it just,
What we might want to do, I see your point, Lynette. What we might want to do is just have a reworked exhibit to the encroachment agreement that shows crosshatched the area that is allowed for encroaching, and obviously the entrance and exit will encroach across that trail, and that's fine. It'll be part of the cross hatching. That's, I think, maybe what we need to do to make very clear what area is being encroached upon.
and then just refer to the site plan rather than trying to describe it in dimensions.
I think that's right. We did that effectively, I think, with the Rose Street apartments and the parking there. There was just no better way than to show a crosshatch area that is going to be encroached upon. I would recommend the same thing here. We might want to either layer that onto an exhibit like this or a freestanding exhibit. That can be a condition of your approval, if you do approve, that an exhibit be prepared that depicts physically the encroached area. And that will do it.
Okay. To me, that would be much clearer. Yeah.
would we, just to be clear about that, the area on either end beyond the two entrances, I'm showing a tree there, and we would again be glad to landscape that part of it, not the first 15 feet, but should we include that in the encroached area as well?
That's up to the board.
I guess I would think that it falls into landscaping associated with this development, and therefore maybe just do, yeah. Is that agreeable?
That's fine with me.
Are you asking, is it agreeable with the rest of the board?
Well, any and all.
I'm in agreement with that. I think that's fine. I maybe like to see the bike path go to the edge of the property or something, at
Right,
least shown
that's what I was going to say.
somehow that and how you're gonna have that bike path cross those driveways, maybe just so it's clear that,
Right.
that there's a little bit of a priority for bikes, possibly somehow.
So are we talking about flipping? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mary.
Are we talking about flipping the landscape buffer and the peak to peak or peak to plains trail?
I hope not.
I don't think so.
Well, then obviously, I mean, as far as landscaping too, we want to maintain visibility because there are going to be several bicyclists who are not going to be stopping and taking advantage of the bike parking and will be zipping through there. So I would anticipate that there would be some type of, you know, stop signs and the yellow marking signs and yield to bicyclists and all of that. My other concern though, especially with regarding to the bicyclists, is the parking that comes right up against the trail as they're riding by. Can we flip the parking spaces and have them up against the building and have that even more, in a sense, open space? But I realize that would be the driveway as people come in and out of that commercial area. It might eliminate a parking space or two, especially where it would be opposite the parking that's on the same side as the buildings.
Mary, are you worried about the bicyclists having some pedestrians step onto the path as they're moving along too fast or something?
Yeah, or even the cars pulling in too far or not paying attention, or, you know, as the bicyclists that are zipping along that way on the trail, even though, you know, it's going to be a commercial area, you know, all of a sudden you feel like you're going to be sideswiped by a car that's pulling into a parking space, as opposed to if the parking was up against the buildings.
We would real stops for cars for sure.
That doesn't mean anything. They can jump those in a heartbeat.
Oh, sure.
There's an anticipation in a bike path in a city that you have to be more aware than you are if you're just riding on a an unimpeded path somewhere, like going up, you know, past the train and whatnot. So, you know, there you have to anticipate a little bit of wariness on the bicyclist part too. You need to slow down just a tiny bit if they're going to be moving through you know, dangerous areas.
Is there any way to route the peak to plains thing in a safer spot, like behind the buildings?
No, behind the buildings, you're getting into I-70 right of way. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have as a bicyclist, you know, for a long time, I don't have a problem with this plan as long as it's delineated, the path is delineated well.
Well, and the comment from the fire authority was requesting that the path be elevated or be at a different elevation than the parking lot itself to provide that demarcation like you're talking about. So there is a little bit of difference between the bike path and the parking lot. So it addresses the question that you're bringing up, Mary. Of course, how much elevation change that is, that's yet to be identified, but that was one thing that the fire department said.
And the landscape buffer is pretty much on ground level. We're not talking building that up at all that would further impede any kind of sight lines.
No. I don't think so. I mean, maybe the applicant can speak to that, but I don't think so.
No, that wasn't our intent. Our intent was to keep it at grade, and basically this is a road bike path, so it would be a concrete, I would imagine, concrete elevated curb and sidewalk essentially.
It would seem to me that would work fine, and if there was a little bit of a ramp going down to your just something changing the grade just slightly for your driveways or something, so that there would be a notice of a driveway to the riders, some sort of physical thing that I think that would solve some of the problems.
I mean, I would imagine it's going to be an asphalt parking lot. We could extend the concrete 10-foot wide Peaks Plains Trail, you know, down and across and then back up in concrete, really demarcate if you wanted.
I'd also like to request that there be no overnight parking signs put in this lot.
I would agree.
Okay.
Just because of the increase in traffic and volume that we're seeing in this area.
So on this plan, the heliport's shown pretty close. Is that kind of where it's at? I mean,
You know,
No,
it's off a little bit.
okay.
It's closer.
I don't think it's closer.
It's on the roof of the Never Summer.
on your part of your packet had the Clear Creek County interactive map. And you can see that it's
it
several
looks like-
lots away.
Yeah.
As far as where the helipad is.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
Lynette,
Yes, Jerry.
I'm making notes as we go because I'm assuming that when we get to the point of a motion, there'll be some additional conditions plugged into those blanks. So I've been making notes as we go, and when we're to the point of a motion, then I can articulate them. But let me just tell you what I've written down so far to make sure I'm not off base on what I've heard. But what I've written down so far is as conditions that the encroached area be shown on an exhibit, on a physical exhibit with cross hatching, so we know where it is. First, that there be landscaping required per either a site plan or that exhibit. I wasn't real clear on that, but I heard that you wanted to require landscaping within the encroached area as shown on their landscape plan. You can discuss that in a minute, but I'm kind of ticking them off, I guess. I heard that a requirement would be at least within the encroached area to build, or within the north to south expanse of where their development is along Argentine, to build the peak to plains trail segment that should be grade separated as recommended by, because you're not sure how separated, but as recommended by the fire department and ultimately I think probably approved by the town administrator, that there be placed no overnight parking signs in connection with the parking lot. And the last condition that you haven't mentioned, but that I am going to recommend, is that the encroachment agreement not be effective unless and until the applicant acquires title to this property, to the adjacent private property. They don't have title now. I understand that they want to be able to know they've got this encroachment before they close on the deal that they've got, and they mean well not close on that deal if they don't have this. But we don't give an encroachment agreement to someone that doesn't own the adjacent property, so it would not become effective. But it would be all done, and so once they closed on the property, it'd be automatically effective. But I would want to set it up that way. That's my list so far.
And just to clarify, my intent on the landscaping was that any landscaping within that strip of land that is being conveyed as part of this encroachment agreement, that whatever landscaping will be done will be maintained by the property owner and the holder of the encroachment license. That was my intent.
I see. Rather than you've got to plant stuff, if you do, you have to maintain it. Is that right?
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Would that allow us to be able to irrigate it?
Make it so you have to.
Irrigation becomes another matter.
How about native landscaping?
Fair enough.
Well, because then you're talking more xeriscaping, and your concerns about that, are lessened with the irrigation.
Go ahead, Kent.
I'm probably thinking about the same thing you are, Lynette.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember if this property was part of the water rights
Don't know.
that the water rights from the county that we are leasing. And I don't think it is, but I'm not 100%. So
Pretty sure it isn't. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it
Yeah.
is either.
separate
Seems-
ownership.
Yeah, it seems to me that when we were dealing with that whole Bighorn Crossing piece, that this commercial piece was exempted out.
yeah,
So it would be subject to development tap fees and development fees, and it would be subject to whatever the town water restrictions are, wouldn't it? Okay,
Yes, that's right.
Is there water available from the town?
there is for the businesses, yes. And as far as the actual landscaping, I
That's fine.
think
We-
it should
we can see our-
match the rest of the town. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Excuse
Okay.
me, we do have one attendee person that's raising their hand. Would you like them to speak?
yes, please.
Okay. So Michael, I'm going ahead and promoting you to be able to talk.
His mic's
And you can
off.
just unmute yourself. Michael, you can talk now if you unmute yourself.
Okay, I did. I know nothing about this, but I also know a little about the Peak to Plain Trail. My question is there a Peak to Plain Trail authority or someone who's managing it, and have them make an opinion on whether it conforms to their goal of making the trail all the way from the mountain from the peak to the plain? That's my question.
There's no
Or
specific
suggestion.
Peak to Plains authority.
Pardon me?
It is being put together by all the local governments that are involved, all the way from Loveland ski area, basically area from Loveland Pass, all the way down to the metro area.
So there's no
So-
designated speaker or authority that speaks, that makes sure that whatever the goal
No.
is. being carried.
No, there are people that are associated with it, with the Greenway, Clear Creek County Greenway, and some other folks regarding that. But the part that's within the town of Georgetown is the town of Georgetown's responsibility. And as far as the 10-foot wide, that was the standard that's set up for that Peak to Plains Trail.
Who set it up?
It's the
Who-
as far as the standards for the trail, or
Yeah, yeah.
as far as where the trail's going.
Either one. I mean, I'm just trying to find out if there's someone who speaks for the trail. That's all I'm trying to find out. I'm not going to do it. I would like the board, if they're interested in doing it, it's up to them too. I'm just
No, that's what I'm
I'm
telling
just
you,
a
is that the
bicyclist
town.
once in a while, and so I thought that.
Sure. It's
That's fine. You can take it up if you are interested.
okay. Okay. It's a plan that's been continued to be developed. And it's an idea that they have started setting across certain sections that have been completed. There's other sections that are just under development or under plans to get from Loveland Pass all the way down through Clear Creek County and then down through Clear Creek Canyon to the metro area. So in fact, they're doing another section within the canyon, or the highway that heads down from that direction that Jefferson County is completing through
Right, but
their
there's,
portion.
when you're saying there is actually no there that's in charge of being in charge of it. I think you said that.
Well, there's not a separate authority, no. There's each government is responsible for the trail that's within their borders.
Okay,
So
okay. Thank you very much for the information.
you bet.
Yes, Deanne.
I like the direction Michael was going. I think the people doing the other sections of the trail, some of them, at least the Greenway people, should have input on this right-of-way thing, because it bothers me that we have vehicle driveways that these bikes are gonna have to cross. And so I think that even though it's officially within Georgetown's borders, it should be, someone in their group should look through it. I don't ride bicycles, so I don't know, but it bothers me that we've got bikes coming down supposedly to freely drive clear down to the Front Range, and yet they have to cross driveways. I think those guys need to be brought into this.
I can understand that. There's multiple places in various places along the trail where they have to cross certain things. There's just no way to separate it completely. Within Idaho Springs, there's part of the trail that goes right through a certain area. So
Idaho
I understand
a
the
lost
situation.
We still have a slight bit of historic integrity. It's not okay.
Well, Deanne, just so that you're seeing a larger picture too, this is just a small segment of that trail. That trail will go along Argentine Street, so there will be a place where they cross the entrance to the motel. There will be a place where they cross the driveway entering the gas station. They'll go past the roundabout. They'll go across the driveway at the visitor center. There are several driveways along that whole section that they will have to navigate. It wasn't possible to locate a pathway that avoided all of that. It didn't exist. If it was going to go through Georgetown, it has to have that crossing traffic. So it'll have to be mitigated and, signed so that people are aware that there is cross traffic and who needs to yield to whom. So it's just not possible to eliminate that as it goes through town. So. Does that satisfy your concerns? I mean.
No, but it's how it is.
Okay, all right. Anyone else from the board?
Does the plan for any improvement on Argentine Street, are the applicants aware of that down the line, and what impact might that have on their plans?
I'm not aware of any improvements going on Argentine. We did offer to put curb and gutter on the side, but the fire department didn't want us to do that.
Kent, what's the ultimate plan?
It's hard to, yeah, there's no plan to widen Argentine, or at least nothing currently within the town's books to widen it. We are left with 100-foot right of way because of it was a former US highway. But with I-70 right next door, the town has not put in any of their plans to widen Argentine as it heads down to the lake. And then as far as, just like we heard earlier tonight, as far as the popularity of Georgetown Lake and as the popularity of using the frontage road when there's traffic delays on I-70. The more there's been a reluctance by any of the plans that have been made for Georgetown to make any additional improvements to Argentine beyond what it is currently, a 2-lane road with access to the local properties adjacent to it. So that's what we have in the plans currently. And to try to keep the speed limit reduced within that portion of Argentine Street.
Right. If there aren't any more comments from the board, I would then maybe Jerry could read his draft amendment or draft motion, and it will see how that reads and take further action.
Sure. Proper motion would be to move to recommend approval of the encroachment license agreement by Real Development LLC as submitted with the following conditions. One, approval of fire access by the Clear Creek Fire Authority. Two, depict the encroached area on an exhibit, physical exhibit, attached to the encroachment license agreement. Number three, applicant to maintain any landscaping it installs on the encroached area. Or applicant to construct the segment of the Peak to Plains Trail within the north to south boundaries of their property, trail to be elevated per recommendation of the fire department and upon the approval of the town administrator for up to 5 or 6. Applicant to place no overnight parking signs to govern the parking on their property. And last, that the encroachment license agreement as approved not become effective unless and until the applicant acquires a title to the adjacent property.
Okay, before I take a motion, is that all agreeable with the applicants?
Yes, everything's agreeable.
Okay, very good. All right, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll
Go on, Mary.
second.
Paul seconds it.
Figured I'd give it to Paul.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the encroachment license as noted with the conditions noted by our town attorney. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I am.
Okay. Motion passes. And thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
David and Andre, thanks very much.
We'll see that done by next weekend, right?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good luck.
We look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Agreed.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
All right, and now we have an easement agreement for a driveway access. Is that you, Kent?
I'll start off and Jerry can assist. We'll probably start talking as soon as I say something a little bit left of center or right of center, depending on what it is. We've talked about this property a couple different times. It was under consideration. Previously, the board had approved resolution number 4, series 2021, just a couple months ago, to accept title from Clear Creek County to a parcel of former real property. This is a parcel that's adjacent to Skyline Drive, that is in Ward 3. The property owners of a mining claim want to have access or construct a driveway across the town-owned property. That was the reason for and we have a history that was prior to that where we had found out that the town did not own the property. The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management with the federal government, had transferred the property to Clear Creek County, and it had never transferred to the town of Georgetown. And that's why that the county had taken the steps to transfer the property to the town of Georgetown. The applicant is asking for a driveway easement across that property to the Arctic mining claim in order to build a single family residence on the mining claim as is allowed according to town code as far as building a single residence on a mining claim. That is allowed within the Georgetown Town Code. The driveway is set up, and I'll let the applicant speak to that. I think Craig Abrahamson's on the call regarding that. And also Justin Scott, the proposed property owner, can talk to that as far as the actual driveway. As far as, and I'll probably let Jerry speak to, actually, why don't we let the applicant ask first, and then Jerry can go through what is the mechanism that actually allows it to occur. That probably would be best. So Craig or Justin, if you can unmute yourselves and start talking.
Yeah, this is Justin Scott. I think you pretty much summed up everything. We actually closed on the property, so we own it. So now we would just like to be able to drive to it and build a house on it. And we've enlisted Craig to help us design a worthy driveway that meets all of your requirements to get us there.
Want me to
Greg,
talk
you want to
about it?
describe that driveway?
Sure, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Good.
There we go. Yeah, the driveway's about 162 feet long. It starts on Skyline Drive, right here just below 1760 Skyline Drive. And we've been back and forth with the town's engineer on some of the nuances here, but it takes off at about a 4% grade from Skyline there, and then essentially at a 10% grade all the way up to the property line. This is the property line of the Arctic right here. In terms of where it goes from this point will be part of the site-specific design that takes place while the home's being designed. You can, that's really about all there is to say here. The driveway does meet the town's standards and comments from the town's engineer. And that's about it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
And then Jerry can speak to what is the actual mechanism that would accomplish this if the board would agree or would direct staff to actually prepare whatever document that would need to be prepared for this.
Thanks. And as you see from the staff report that's in your packet, in contrast to an encroachment agreement, the proper mechanism here, if the board were to grant it, would be an easement agreement that could be recorded. Encroachment agreements are revocable. Easement agreements are an interest in real property that's recorded. And that is appropriate in this case because the house, if it's built, will be a permanent improvement and will need permanent access to the public roadway system. And it's not something where the property owner can afford to be in the position of having their access to their house revoked by the town. So it's my recommendation that if done, it be an easement agreement. These are common. Easements agreement. Driveway easements agreements are probably one of the most common easements that exist in land title in this country. So the issues for the town obviously are making certain that the driveway would comply with the town's driveway requirements in terms of elevation and grade. And that's been spoken to, and it does. Certainly because it's town property and with an easement, just kind of like the encroachment agreement, you can in fact impose conditions. The conditions that you'll noted are in the staff report that are recommended is that the easement agreement, require the owner to maintain the driveway and maintain it to continuously comply with the town's driveway requirements. You can certainly determine whether or not you would like a gate to be at the bottom of this property or allowed, either required or allowed. I'm inclined to think probably allowed is the right way to go. Because it's an easement for a single family residence, it would be appropriate for there to be signage saying private drive, no public access. Because while it's town property on either side of the driveway and frankly underneath it, if you grant an easement, this is not town property that was ever conceived of by the board when it accepted title as becoming some kind of park or recreation area. It's not designed really for that. And certainly we'd want to have an inspection of the final design by the town staff, final design of the roadway. And we can insert a reverter clause that if it's ever ceased to be used as a driveway access, if they get alternate access, or if the house in the future is demolished and no longer used as a residence, then we would want, it would be appropriate for the easement access to revert to the town and to expire, and that can be written into the easement. We can certainly have more discussion. You can have questions of staff or of Mr. Scott or Craig. You've got really two doors around this, or two different recommendations for motions. One would be to direct me to prepare an easement and authorize the police judge and town clerk to sign it, or direct me to prepare an easement that would be put on your packet for 2 weeks from now so that you can see the actual document itself and the various conditions that you want to impose on it. So that's kind of my report. This is something where it's easement territory, not encroachment agreement territory, for the reasons I described.
Yes, Deanne.
Is it going to, will putting a driveway in there affect the drainage or cause erosion?
There will be some drainage that obviously comes down the driveway, but whether it's different from what it is currently, I don't know. I didn't, Craig, if there's anything specific regarding that, I don't.
Yeah, the road's designed to avoid erosion on the road itself, so the drainage is directed to the uphill side of the road. As you can kind of see in this exhibit. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. You can't see anything. You can see in this exhibit right here, if I zoom in a bit, that the road is what they call super elevated to run the drainage to the uphill side of the road and control it, which is intended to minimize erosion of the actual road surface, which is proposed to be the 3 inches of the recycled, compacted recycled asphalt, which has a lower roadability component to it as well. And then it would simply continue down basically this edge of the road to Skyline Drive. All the disturbed areas off of the road itself will obviously be revegetated in accordance with just sound development practice. So that's how erosion is avoided and mitigated as a result of the road.
I had a comment in response to Jerry's mentioning of reversion of the easement should the residents be either abandoned or demolished and the easement no longer needed for various reasons. And if we include that kind of language, I would also want the easement, the developed driveway that passes through that easement to be reclaimed and restored to its previous natural state, which I don't really foresee it happening. It didn't even occur to me to think about, but yes, if it does wind up that they acquire access some other way, then I wouldn't want that driveway to remain as a developed driveway.
I can do that. I agree with you. It's very unlikely, but that's why we write conditions to protect ourselves for things that might not happen until 50 years from now.
Justin Scott, did you want to speak to the board on any of this?
I don't know what else to say other than I think if there was another driveway option, we might have gone a different route just because this one was kind of difficult to come up with. So like Sherry said, I think it's highly unlikely that we'll find another access. And as far as the yeah, and we have no plans of moving. We want to stay here forever. We love this town. And as far as the erosion, also, we want to disturb as little existing vegetation as possible, and keep as many of course trees and bushes and minimal impact, I think. And Craig, when we designed this, he spoke to the same thing. Just trying to keep it as natural as possible.
Okay.
Should there be an event that seriously damages it, enough so to say, for example, cut off their access, it's their responsibility entirely to deal with stuff, to put their driveway back, but fill in any erosion and stuff that could happen. I'm just concerned because that's real steep down there,
Yeah.
It's certainly not the town's obligation. An easement grants you the right to use some town property under conditions. And if something happens and you have trouble accessing your house on that, it's not the town's job to fix that roadway so that you can get there. Absolutely.
I agree. If we're building the driveway, we would have to repair it or maintain it or everything that falls under that umbrella.
Okay.
Can we have a little discussion about gating and signage, just so that I get a sense from the board around that? I'm inclined that it's not something where you want to gate. There are very few gated properties in town, and that's kind of off-putting. At the same time, I do think it would be permitted and maybe encouraged for the applicant to have a sign that says private drive, no public access, so that you don't have the public driving halfway up thinking it's going to be a trailhead, because it's kind of located in a spot where you might think it kind of looks like one. And certainly I think that both the town and the applicant probably have the same interest here, that it be used only for the applicant. If the applicant doesn't have objection to that.
Not at all. We had planned on something to that effect anyhow, just like you said, to keep people from thinking they're getting somewhere and they're really just coming to visit us instead.
Well, I think it's particularly important if you can't fully see the house from down on Skyline. And from personal experience, I have some friends who live down in Lawson who they do get people looking for a Jeep trail to go up into the hills on, and it winds up being their driveway. And so it's posted that it's private and no through traffic and so on, and they still get that. But you can minimize it by putting good signage down at the road. So
sure.
That'll be helpful too to the rest of the residents on Skyline, so that everyone's not trying to blaze a new trail up your driveway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps Lynette, the board could sort of instruct Kent and me, is this something you are comfortable with Kent and I creating and Lynette signs it, or creating it instead and you see a draft in the packet in 2 weeks? I'm fine with that too. It's whichever you like. And we'll write it up either way. And once I've gotten a head nod in that direction, then I can help you with a motion.
Okay. So
I'd like to see it in a couple of weeks, only because we've been having, a lot of encroachment applications and requests like this, and I think it would just help us solidify it if we saw it. And I don't think, and Justin, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think 2 weeks is going to delay you in this project.
We're ready to start our driveway whenever you guys give us the green light, and it's
It's
been
snowing this week still,
yeah, there's a little bit. Yeah, I get that. It's been, I don't know, 14 months, I think. Kent can testify to that, of us trying to figure out this whole process. So yeah, 2 weeks won't kill us, but it's 2 more weeks that we'll have to wait. That we're antsy. We're ready to build a house.
Well, I do think if, and there's another reason maybe, and that's the we want to make sure you, Justin, are comfortable with those conditions as the board would be, because an easement agreement is a little contract between yourselves forever and your successors and assigns and the town. And that's something that once we've written it and signed it, you can always amend an easement, but once that's done, once we've written and signed it and it's recorded, it has some permanence and it lives for a while, and we have to live with the language written. So I personally would appreciate being able to have more eyes on it in one last review. I'd be shocked if it ended up in the packet and there were no little edits. And honestly, I'm glad of that, because you want the little edits, you want more people to look at it, and then everybody's happy with it, and it lasts for longer.
Okay, yeah, I can appreciate that as well.
Yes, Deanne?
Just a little point of clarity. If for some reason, like not in our lifetimes, the house changes property ownership, does the easement come up for reassessment, or is it permanently part of it once we okay or whatever?
It would run with the land. So it would run with whoever owned that house up there. When they buy the house, they'd be buying the easement along with it, and it would not come up for renewal in front of the board.
What sort of conditions would happen if, I don't know, for example, Justin's family decided to build an amusement park, something that was totally unacceptable? Is the easement then up for reassessment?
The way that I intend to draft the easement would be that it's for the purpose of access to a single family residence only. And that is like most easement documents are drafted with permitted uses. That is the list of uses. And here it would be for one single family residence. So that easement could not be used then for any other purpose than a single family residence. They might go up there and, to begin with, they'd have to get zoning approval to build something other than a house up there, which is probably the bigger obstacle.
VRBO, Airbnb kind of problems. What if all of a sudden we've got a parade going up and down the driveway? Can we have any say over that?
Well, if a single family residence is allowed on the property, then all uses allowed of single family residences in the town would be allowed there. And having said that, as you know, the town has a short-term rental licensing program. So they would have to get a short-term rental license. If they did get a short-term rental license, that's one of the uses that you can make of a single family residence. Okay. Having said that, I'm glad you asked the question. Having said that, the thing about the single family or the short-term rental license program is that it itself can have conditions. Single family STR licenses have been issued by the town with various conditions layered on top of them. But you are correct that if they chose to rent it that way and actually got a single family rental license, then that could be the case.
And we have no plans of, moving or making a short-term rental out of it, but I mean, pretend somebody did. I don't think it could create any more traffic than us coming in and out of our own home.
Okay.
A proper motion, I think, would be to go with door number 1, which is in the packet as recommended motion, and then I can take all of the comments I heard here, inject conditions, etc., and you'll see it in your packet, and doubtless help me do a little reworking of it even 2 weeks from now, and it'll be a good product.
Okay.
Aren't we just directing you as staff to put this together and then we actually put the motion forward next meeting when we see it?
Well, sure. I mean, Kent and I always like to make sure that the board's behind.
Just being formal.
We're for it. I mean, I'm for it. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to see it before.
Sure.
Oh, I just said we're being formal is all Jerry's saying.
I'd prefer a motion directing me to do it, and that way I know the board's in favor of it, or in favor of me drafting it. And
at least just the agreement to look at it. Yeah.
I agree, Mary. It'll come back, and you'll have to approve the easement agreement. But
okay, I'll make that motion to direct you to put together the encroachment agreement for driveway access.
Easement agreement.
This is an easement
agreement. Do you have your packet?
No, I bumbled through
you
the
don't
pages.
Have your packet?
I do.
It's all written in the packet. It's
okay,
like
so
right
I make that motion for you to
prepare an easement agreement.
Yes.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that, John.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to direct the town attorney to prepare an easement agreement between the town of Georgetown and Justin and how do you pronounce? Leisha, thank you.
Of course.
Leisha Scott for driveway access across the identified parcel for review and approval by the Board of Selectmen at its next regular meeting. Any further discussion?
I just want to say thank you, everybody.
You're welcome, Justin.
Welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Justin. See you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on to staff items. Under COVID update, as you probably all are aware, the case numbers are up. And that has a lot to do with spring break travel and mask requirements being removed in other parts of the country. The county mask order had expired and the commissioners did at their meeting today put it back in place. They also adopted the dial provisions that have been in use that will in a fairly short period of time become guidance measures as far as the state goes. But I just wanted to, if the county needed town support, or if the town board felt they wanted to express support, that we might possibly do a letter of support it depends on how you feel. And it didn't sound during the Board of County Commissioners discussion today like they were looking for support from the towns. We'd already actually, the mayor of Idaho Springs and I participated in, and the mayor of Silver Plume all participated in a meeting last Wednesday, and we were all expressing support for them to put their mask order back in place. It didn't change. It's been the same since the inception of the pandemic. And so if you feel like you want to do a letter of support, that would be great. If you don't feel it's necessary, I'm good with that as well. I just wanted to put it on the agenda so that we could take action if you felt it was important to. So, any input?
What are we supporting?
The reinstate, so Georgetown doesn't have its own public health entity. We rely on the county because they do. They put their mask order, and following the dial system that was put in place, they passed a resolution today to reinstate that. And if you feel like you want the town to express support for that action, that's all I was asking, if you wanted or didn't feel it was necessary.
I'm fine with expressing support for what the county's doing. They put a lot of time and effort into it. It really helps us all, so I'm good with it.
They are also putting they've ordered some variable message boards that can be put in various places, and one will come into Georgetown to encourage people who are coming to visit wearing the mask and complying with that. The purpose for that is so that you don't have all of our store clerks and wait staff at all of the restaurants trying to be the compliance police, basically. That they, they're already being confronted with people who are resisting that requirement, and we'd like to put messages before they even walk into a store that the mask is required if you go inside a public, a place that's open to the public, and that's the expectation when people come to visit. So I would like to support the county in their efforts, just because it provides a more unified message. So, but how does the rest of the board feel?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I like supporting the county commissioners, but I'd like to see it be even a little stronger than what they've got. So tell them to keep going. Like, for example, New Mexico, if you go down there, you're not, a restaurant will not serve you if you've come in from another state and haven't self-quarantined for 14 days. We can't do anything about it. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
Well, and you run into, you're elevating the level of enforcement that you are committing to, and we're already kind of there's enough resistance that enforcing just wearing the masks is in some cases
tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a diplomatic challenge. So Rob, Paul?
I'd like to, I fully support our health department, and Yeah, I mean, if whatever they see in trends, I mean, I've seen it myself. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I want to get behind them 100%.
Okay.
I agree. I'm 100% behind it. I think we still need to wear masks. Other parts of the country are opening too early. And we're going to be heading into our busy tourist season this summer. People coming from around the country. We need to protect ourselves to stay open for business.
Right. Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Second on the COVID update would be just to put the word back in, keep repeating that public, it's the COVID impact survey is still open, and if you haven't responded to it, and spread the word too to people. They're looking to get as wide a response as possible so that when additional funds come our way, we know what the needs might be out in the community. So appreciate your help in spreading that word. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I will say that I think I've got it scheduled for a second dose, and I'm trying to find out if I've got an appointment or not. And I've left a message at that phone number that is connected with the county. Nobody's ever called me back or anything like that.
Okay.
Just, if you have a line on to somebody, just say, that I'm not getting any response, but I'm just one person, so.
Well, but you're not the only person who is trying to line up for, so this is your second dose, and I thought.
Right.
So, I thought.
Well, I just want to make sure I've got an appointment, so.
You
find out if there's some way online you can do that, and there's just no resource.
So when shortly after you had your first dose, you should have received an email that asked you to schedule the second. And I mean, that's what happened with me. And then I got a confirmation that my appointment had been made. And then pretty much like the day before the appointment that you had scheduled, when that rolls around, you will get another reminder email, but you don't get anything in between.
Right. There's no resource for you to be able to say, I can't remember if I made the appointment or not. And I never got, I'm looking back at my emails. I never got an email.
Oh.
Just want to double check and make sure that I made the appointment. They might say, oh, we have you right here, or no, you never did make the appointment. But I'll know until I don't get an email the day before, and then it's too late.
Okay. Okay.
The commissioners spent quite a bit of time trying to refine that with the county health guy, Dr. Ryan.
Yeah.
Today.
I'll see if I can find if I can
thanks.
find out.
I mean, I didn't expect that. I wasn't saying it to like have somebody give me any solution or anything like that, but I expected to leave a message and get a call back, but
sure.
You know,
they do
we can
have a
contact
full-time scheduler now, and so I'll see if I can find a link for her.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other? Kent? Yes.
Has nothing to do with COVID, so, but I
Okay.
do have one item I didn't mention at the beginning, so. And if it's okay to go ahead, if you're
sure,
if you're done with COVID. One item is, and that I had it written down, but I didn't include it at the beginning. As far as we are still not doing water shutoffs at this point. We kind of, once we started doing that at, the turn of the year, we haven't done water shutoffs basically. And we've kept that, and we haven't asked you for direction back. Is it okay to go ahead and start going to that again? We have gone the policy as far as everything else with the what utility billing is same as it was before, as far as assessing late fees, but the water shutoffs, we are not at this point. And then we are starting to get some customers, and they are basically the frequent flyers, where they need that extra incentive, motivation to at least get partway caught up on their bills. We took it off, obviously, because of conditions around the, November, December timeframe, when we took all those other actions to help people with their utility bills, to help businesses with their utility bills. And we've continued that. But at this point, either now or in the near future, we really should get back to that situation where we do have to shut off the utility in order to get some action.
I guess I'm feeling like it's, there have been enough assistance funds available for people if they were really unable to pay. And so it might be appropriate now, a year later, to go ahead and reinstate the practice of warning them that their water will be turned off for non-payment.
All right with that.
Could we give people a month's notice that we're going to start as of May 1st or something?
Certainly we could, and they do get notified every single month that they are behind in their bill, that they haven't paid their bill, and that they are being assessed fees because of it. But yes, we can always notify them additional notice regarding it, but they have been notified every single month as it's been occurring.
So if we put
They just haven't had the action.
right. So if we put this on our next meeting's agenda as an action item, I would hope that would give
Certainly
it enough notice that we're moving back in that direction. Does that satisfy you?
Yeah, that would certainly be helpful.
Okay. Anybody else have anything falling under staff items?
One other thing, I guess a comment from earlier when we were way back at the beginning of the meeting when we were talking about signs around the lake. One idea that's been put forth is, and I don't know, just an idea, I'm just putting it for food for thought, is to have a variable message board or a permanent message board at the corner of 22nd and Argentine as you come up to the lake area. We just have so many different messages to be able to get to folks on a regular basis that an electric message board would be helpful and would be noticeable. And I know that Georgetown is not as receptive towards it, but we're getting to a place where signage is so important, but it gets ignored. And a message board might be helpful in trying to get certain messages across. When we try to have messages regarding no ice fishing, or certain parts of the lake are being used by drivers and other types of things, or during other issues that we have during the summer, enforcement issues, that some additional signage that may be a little more than what we have currently may be helpful. And I don't know what you guys think of that idea. Like I said, it's just an idea. It would have to go obviously through a couple different things to get done, but just letting you know that something additional needs to be done, you know, as far as the messages, not just the fire signs. I mean, that'll be helpful, but that's just one issue of multiple ones we have down at the lake. So.
I kind of like the idea that, you know, you could vary the message based on what you're trying to get across, and so you could draw their attention to ice fishing season is now closed. Please respect, you know, delineated, designated parking places. You know, just I like the idea of being able to vary that message.
Yeah.
So, do you want to go ahead and explore the costs involved and different options for
Yep.
those kinds of signs?
Might ask,
Size
yeah, well, might pursue some additional information as far as DRC's opinion regarding it.
Okay.
Follow their guidelines as well, but some other information regarding it too.
Okay.
So.
Yes, Dan.
Where exactly could it be placed so that it isn't in conflict with the businesses that are down there now? I could see it just getting lost if it's in that, I'll call it a southeast corner of Argentina.
It would be past the intersection. It would be more towards where the bathrooms are in the warming hut.
Okay.
But right at that, basically on the northeast corner. But I don't know as far as exact location. I mean, I haven't gone that far, obviously.
I was just thinking it would, you know, with that hotel and the brewery and stuff, if it could get lost or run over, backed into, you know, whatever.
Absolutely. It would have to be in the right location.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
There have been 2 motions and 2 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great. Thank you so much, everybody. It was a long meeting, but we got a lot accomplished. Thanks very much.
All right, good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.